Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final lecture of Poll 205, Women in Politics. This week, we're going to discuss the final chapter from the Fox and Lawless book on gender equality in the United States. I did want to share just a few notes from the final reading in this course from the Lawless and Fox book, especially considering that many of the points raised in the final chapter may be relevant to helping you conclude your research papers. So Chapter 10 in Lawless and Fox summarizes many of the historic social, cultural, and legal barriers women have faced, concepts that we have thoroughly discussed throughout the course, and the progress that we have made as a society toward true gender equality. And most of the changes that we see today, such as women's increased presence on college campuses and in high-level professional positions, is largely a product of evolving societal norms. Your book gives a really great example of this. During the height of the U.S. involvement in World War II, women had to enter the workforce en masse to sustain the economy because so many men were deployed overseas. And while that was a precedent-shattering moment for women, male superiors found themselves unsure of how to relate to their new female employees. In 1943, Mass Transportation magazine published an article that provided helpful, an emphasis on sarcasm here, helpful tips on how male supervisors should treat female employees. Such gems of advice included things like, quote, "If you can get them, pick young married women. They're less likely to be flirtatious. As a rule, they need the work or they wouldn't be doing it." Or this one, "Husky girls, those who are just a little on the heavy side, are likely to be more even-tempered and efficient than their underweight sisters." And then finally, this one's my favorite, "Give every girl an adequate number of rest periods during the day. A girl has more confidence and consequently is more efficient if she can keep her hair tidied, apply fresh lipstick, and wash her hands several times a day." Oh, man. And while you might think that such overt misogyny is a relic of the past, professional development executives at Ernst & Young, one of the world's largest accounting firms, found itself in seriously hot water in 2018 after it conducted a training seminar for aspiring women executives that really did more to reinforce negative stereotypes about women than provide any meaningful advice on leadership or professionalism. Instead of receiving helpful tips and advice on how to be an effective leader or how to be successful at the firm, women were given a long list of invisible rules that must be followed if women wish to be successful in the company. One section of the training is devoted entirely to women's appearance. Be polished, have a good haircut, have manicured nails, wear well-cut attire that complements your body type, as well as warnings like, "Don't flaunt your body, sexuality scrambles the mind," and other helpful tips, again, sarcasm emphasized, suggested women ought to speak briefly and concisely, noting women often ramble and miss the point in meetings, and that women should wait their turn or raise their hands in meetings, never interrupt, as this will be perceived as combative or disrespectful. And it's in these high-level positions like corporate America and politics that have historically underemployed women that continue to hold onto these outdated stereotypes. In other words, these industries or positions of power continue to hold on to these values because the norm hasn't really been challenged as rigorously as it has in other areas like education. So it's easy to see why the norm remains in place. Today, women only account for about 20% of partners in the nation's major law firms, compared to 17% over a decade ago. So not much change at all. And in 2016, only 22 Fortune 500 companies had a female CEO. And women's expectations for motherhood is just another example of that. Even today, as your book points out, while young men and women are, of course, more progressive, particularly on gender roles broadly, young women are still more likely to believe that family-related responsibilities will take precedence over their careers. And as we've seen throughout this course, many women politicians continue to experience gender bias, whether it's how they're treated by colleagues, how the media covers their campaigns, or how voters perceive their strengths, weaknesses, and competence. And even more worrisome is the disproportionate impact the coronavirus has had on women's lives. The Institute for Fiscal Studies found that mothers were 47% more likely to have permanently lost their job or quit, and 14% were more likely to have been furloughed since the start of the crisis. Two sectors expected to be hardest hit in the post-COVID world are hospitality and retail, both of which employ significant numbers of female workers. And reports across the world suggest that quarantine lockdowns have resulted in a dramatic increase of domestic violence against women. And countless surveys have illustrated the disproportionate role that women have taken on at home, either in terms of housework or childcare during the coronavirus. So where do we go from here? Some liberal feminists suggest that there should be more government policies that regulate the division of labor in American households. But what would that even look like? A universal basic income? Guaranteed paid family leave? Government subsidized childcare? I mean, who knows? While all of these options sound great in theory and are slowly accumulating support from Democrats and Republicans, one fundamental question overshadows all of these debates. Who's going to pay for it? And that, my friends, is the only question that really matters in politics. Who gets what, when, and how? And while it pains me to say this, that's it for your final lecture. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the class, and if you want to learn more about the politics of who gets what, you should consider taking Pol 101, American National Government. Please don't forget to complete your student evaluations for this course. You should be getting an email about that in the next few weeks or so. Your feedback is really valuable. I'd love to hear what you thought about the assignments, the readings, the format of the course, the video lectures, your overall experience. Your feedback across all of your courses will be highly beneficial to all of your professors, so we can learn what works best and use your comments to improve our classes. Please email me if you have any questions about your remaining assignments, and best of luck to each of you as you complete your final exams.